Well, it's been a rough couple of days. Back-to-back casting if you're watching this on the 7th. Tuesday, Wednesday, we did a double shift with LPL, and unfortunately I got the flu on the night of the 5th, had a bit of a fever, and got rid of that on the 6th, but still, it's been a sick couple of days, quite literally, and also health-wise. And now that LPL has a dark day, I figured this would be a perfect time to record a piece of content that I've wanted to talk to for quite a while, because I value things like Twitch chat, things like Reddit, in different ways than I think a lot of esports casters. However, I think it's also because I can filter out what is relevant and what is not, and I don't let it affect me too much if it's something that's just pure abuse. And that's why I wanted to talk about it today, because I would like, audience members of not just LPL, but all global regions of League of Legends, or maybe even esports, see the value of their words, and also see the impact of negative words that have no constructive criticism attached to it. I've had this conversation with a couple of casters. Some have agreed, some have not, and some have kind of just dismissed Twitch chat and Reddit as like a cesspool, and let's be real, it can be, but there's also some hidden gems in there as well, which is the purpose of this. So on my day off, and because I'm feeling a little bit better, it gives me an opportunity to go through why I find this so valuable, right? And if you're an audience member, as to how you can help in the future, or what you've already done has given a perfect insight. So it's always nice as a caster, you go back on the VODs, you watch Twitch, and you sit here and you look and you're like, okay, I leave chat open on the side. I normally run theater mode. I listen to myself back and I go through and I see what the audience is saying. Now, a lot of the time there's, enthusiasm, like people liking me and Lyric as a duo. Okay, that's cool. Does that do much for me? No. Does it boost the ego? Like a little bit, but it's also I have to keep it in context that, okay, these are LPL viewers that like us and that are, like me or us, want us to keep casting and enjoy our work. Well, that's nice. It's always a nice thing. When people say, I love these casters or I hate these casters, like both are as valuable as each other. Not everyone's going to like you, and that's all, when I talked a little bit earlier about the important context of where you take things out. It's like you need to make sure that you're not going, well, someone doesn't like me, how can I get them to like me? People are going to like you, people are going to hate you, right? It's nice to see enthusiasm here. As when Lyric and I start out there can be. There's other people who say mute. There's other people who say we don't like these guys. That's fair enough. For me, I don't take much from that. That doesn't affect me. But I sit here because during the game, as we're just on the topic of Twitch, a lot of the time as we look at Cagel's channel, for example, which from time to time I'll look back on. He does LPL co-streams. I think I looked back at Dom's as well at some point when I was a sub. And I look back at some of these streams and I'm just like, oh, is there any, in any of these core moments during the game or when we're on screen, they say anything, like we'll get this caster cringe kind of reaction at times. And it's like, okay, maybe that's a little more helpful. How am I making this person cringe? Is it really something that I don't agree with, where I've just kind of gone off the deep end and thrown out the professionalism or whatever? A lot of the time it could be no, it could just be my personality and people don't agree with my humor or don't like my humor. That's also something you can't change. So these are great examples of things that you don't really take out and you don't really care too much about. Positivity is always nice, as I said, but it's kind of like the negativity. It doesn't help you anyway. It's just there and you take for what you will. Not getting affected by it is the first step. So that's the low end of value for especially Twitch chat. I've had Twitch chat feedback before where it's been given to me or someone else on the team, and I always pass it on. Where I've seen things like, I feel like this caster doesn't listen to his co-caster, they're bumping into each other and stuff. Those are very rare. Those are the hidden gems on the high end that I talk about. Sometimes Twitch chat can really deliver on that. And just because people want to label it as a cesspool and there can be a lot of negativity and a lot of memeing, doesn't mean that Twitch chat itself should be stereotyped as something that is completely useless and irrelevant, which is the point of today. It feels like at the moment, 95% of the time you're going to get cringe comments or you're going to get, pog comments, whatever. And then the rest is somewhere in between, or the rest is extended, maybe longer text, right? That's what I want to go into. So with Twitch, finding an example of that a little bit hard because it's only happened a couple of times and those screenshots have gone into the back ends of Discord. but Twitch as well has the same value as Reddit, right? So while Twitch might be a little bit more rare to see things like that, Reddit's always a great place to go through and look at, I look for negative feedback more than anything, right? I look for negative feedback that gives me some kind of insight as to how certain members of the community are feeling. Now, you might say that there'll be negative feedback, but that doesn't represent everyone, right? As you can see here, limited upvotes. There's not much interaction. I've just picked an LPL casters post, but it's happened a lot on Reddit where there might be hosts praising us or saying, we want these guys at Worlds, at MSI. Okay, cool. But the gems in there are things like this, right? Where this is kind of the start where it's like, okay, LPL English casting team least popular among English-speaking casts in Pro League. Well, yeah, okay, he's making a point. People won't recognize the casters. Also true. So you can take that as, well, we have one of the least popular Premier League broadcasts, which is a fact. Our viewership's going up on the LPL English, but it is a more fresh broadcast with OGN, Spo TV, setting up LCK from roots way, way, way long ago. LCS and LEC have been going for the longest time as well. LPL English, while winning recent tournaments, is still the least popular broadcast in there, and that's completely fair. More people are coming over, and that will change over time if LPL keeps winning, but that is a fair point, right? And so that's less a feedback, more of a fact. And so the reason I'm pulling this comment out, because it seems like there is something in here to be taken away. There's only so many casters you can have, and give an LPL analyst a chance to prove their thoughts, because Lyric and stuff went on the international stage. Main casters rarely get any exposure, and this is more like is there anything you can do too much about this? You can perform better so that you can have a higher opportunity of getting pulled out. But things like broadcast quality come through here. The caster stream isn't popular to Western viewers, and they're going to be less popular in whatever. Agree or disagree with what you want to say with the core of what they're looking at. But the point is that there's these hidden gems in Reddit, and way more valuable than this. I remember on one of the LPL posts, right? It wasn't about Worlds or MSI or anything like that. It was one of the casting posts where someone, I think it was for me as well, gave me a praise, and they said, I don't know, I feel like, Hysterics doesn't do this, like he doesn't set up this. Hidden gems like that, that's very specific, and the constructive criticism, the negativity, without it being just this caster's crap, this caster doesn't know what they're saying, whatever, like this is rubbish. The posts that say, that go into depth as to why they don't think a caster does something is amazing for me. Those are the gems I'm looking for, and while this one is kind of on the nose of like criticism and the broadcast isn't as big, you can also take that as like, well, maybe I can look at how I make the broadcast bigger and better. How do I do that? How do I make my brand better so that more people flock to this broadcast? There's things like that give you time to think, and yeah, it's not the greatest, but again, searching for examples here, a little bit hard when I wanted to make this video about a year ago, when I remember seeing the comment that set me off to being like, yes, okay, we can do better. Constructive criticism is always the way I was taught, learning to cast. Back in 2015 when I started, I remember like all that negative criticism that helped me grow is really what set me off and got me to where I am now. 7 years later, almost 8 years later, LPL's, resident LPL caster for play-by-play. Hell, even caster in general, because I've been here since 2019. Penguin came end of 2019, but wasn't able to cast 2020, and so, having residency here on the broadcast, it's like, for me, I take that maybe more personally than other casters would as well. So there's a bit of an example. Sorry, I wish I could give something a bit more solid. I just remember people saying that I wasn't, giving my color more, to set up on, and longer text like this do a really good job. So constructive criticism on Reddit is something where it's like, such a big opportunity for us as casters and any talent across esports to read into the insights of what people think, not only about the show here, but what people think about the casters, right? Sometimes on Twitch and Reddit, it's going to be shorter, it's going to be memey, and you're going to be like, okay, it's positive, that's nice, thank you for the support. Cringe casters, well, you don't like our humor, fair enough. I'm not going to take too much from that. However, things like this, right, as I found on YouTube, and I wanted to extend the line all the way out to YouTube. is YouTube is something that I don't use as much. I use for highlights. I do have a YouTube channel, which is where this will be getting plonked on. But this is something that I love because I think YouTube highlights now, people are giving a little bit more content, right? They're giving a little bit more context. So naturally, I upvoted things that, if they say something nice about us or whatever, even if they're negative, right? Even if they're negative comments that say, hey, why are these casters talking about this when it's completely irrelevant to the situation? Be like, oh yeah, you're right. Upvote that stuff. I think it's completely relevant, and I thank people for feedback a lot of the time. I don't know if you guys have seen in the past couple of years, especially when starting out LPL, I really thank people for negative feedback because I took it on board. I DM those people in Twitch, and I was like, I really appreciate you taking the time to give me a long and honest answer and constructive criticism. How do I, from your perspective, how do I improve that? Again, it's like a minor percent that gets that through. But that's why it's so valuable, because you wait for those hidden gems that I talked about. I like this as well, right? This is positive end, but this is still something that it's like, as a duo, this gives us a lot of insight, and this is going to be the most helpful, I guess, comparison for the video, because this person said that they like the new caster, right? Not much to be heard of him, and I'm like, it's going negative. I don't want them to, this is about Jamada, by the way, because Jamada made his debut in LPL. Not much to be heard of him, giving someone like Hysterics the room that he needs to shine. And when he was heard, he was pleasantly chill as a nice contrast. So it's like, okay, you can take that. It's like, Jamada, maybe we can talk a little bit about your interjection and how you come in the cast. But if you're saying, well, for me, I'm a very high energy caster. I really am. A lot of the time with color casters, I kind of force them to come up to my energy level, which doesn't always work out. I'm very blessed with the voice I've got, with the luck of the Australian. I was going to say luck of the Irish, but I'm not. The luck of the Australian that I have this voice, right? Thank you, Daddy. And I've had a bit of voice training, and I use it to blast. And a lot of the time with color casters, it can be hard to match that. And so, like, Jamada had this really nice contrast where in the downtime, he was chill. It's like a nice contrast. It's like, well, hang on a minute. As a duo, we have really nice contrast. And to take this away, like, this is so helpful. So shout out to Mike. This is so helpful for us, right? Where, okay, well, maybe as a duo, it's like, how do we interject? How does he interject more and give him a little bit more so he's heard? But also, we can go back and say, there was someone who said we were pleasantly chill, nice contrast. How do we build on that? That's so helpful to me as a duo if I get to cast with Jamada again in the LPL. We get to build on that, and we get something to highlight on, because it's not just that it's being said, and I didn't say this with the other parts, but especially with Reddit, when the upvotes come through, and when a lot of people agree with it, yeah, we're sometimes can be just an army of, following the trend. People are upvoting, I'm going to upvote too. But 31 people, including myself, of course, and including him, because I think it gives you an automatic thumbs up, 29 people in total have said that, yeah, this was really nice cast in contrast. It's only on the highlights, but it's still like that contrast coming through, they think it's nice enough. So what I love is that we've gotten something here that, yes, is a positive. It talks about our duo, but it gives us something to build on. And that's why the importance of social media, or things like YouTube, Reddit, Twitch, can really bump us up. Shoutcaster's mad. He said it's like kissing grandma. I made a really weird kind of, reference in this cast. People liked it. I thumbs it up because I'm like, well, I'm still thinking about that one. A lot of the time, I let loose, and it can sometimes backfire where maybe it's mildly inappropriate, or maybe it's something where people are like, that's just so... They could see it as unprofessional, right? Which I never want to happen. I want to be honest and have a lot of fun, but I also don't want to do it at a game's expense where it takes away too much because I'm being that strange, right? I often go through comments like this and I go, okay, people really enjoyed it. They liked the duo here. They liked the little, quirk at the end, and it was hilarious casting for them. And so that's a lot to take away, right? I never want it to be at the expense of someone else. That's one thing where sometimes there's constructive criticism and they bring other casters into it or other talent, and it's just like, I appreciate the either positive or negative feedback. That's constructive criticism that can be taken on board and improve my casting no matter what, but it never needs to be at the expense of someone else. So it's something where, the examples today haven't been as strong as I'd like them to, but you can kind of see the direction I'm on about. For my casting at LPL, I put so much value in Twitch, Reddit, and YouTube feedback, and Twitter as well. Twitter can sometimes be, negative feedback, but it can sometimes be constructive feedback, which is what we're looking for. And a lot of the time, the day after, when I have a fresh mind, or even a couple of days after, I go through the Twitch VOD. I sit here, I listen in theater mode, and I look through the chat and I see what people are saying. They might react to something we've said, they might give feedback at that time, and it might be positive or negative. Oh, I love how these two, fit together. It's such a good balance, stuff like that. And Reddit as well is some of the same. When people are spruiking about us, being positive, sometimes there'll be a couple of negative comments that expand on what we do as casters. As like, oh, maybe they don't like it. There could be something negative about LPL casters in a post, and people will defend and say, oh, I think they do this really well. I don't agree with what you're saying. And that's really the hidden gems. That's the importance. LPL talent itself, we haven't sat down and talked about the importance of, feedback from the community, but I'm talking about it with you guys first and to everyone who's willing to listen, because the core of it is this. Any other broadcast out there, any other show doesn't have the same opportunity of getting feedback like this. One in real time, right? Where we're not watching Twitch chat live. Like, we're not doing that. We're not watching YouTube chat live. Nothing like that. But we get to sync up with the moments in the game where someone feels something. And not only is being able to get direct feedback from your audience on a broadcast so unique and so, valuable, but being able to have it at that specific time and knowing what it's linked to just is icing on the cake. Having that with Reddit as well, there's live time discussions, there's, feedback after the show. It gives me and any other caster and talent so much to work with. I want to walk away from this stereotype that Reddit, Twitch, and YouTube, even with comments, are this massive cesspool. Okay, sometimes they can be, but sometimes no. The value of Twitch chat is massive for me, because going back on a broadcast afterwards, for me, I can take that away and I can improve my casting. I can improve my show to the audience out there. I'm not going to take every little small piece on and make it affect my mental of, oh my God, I'm doing this, and this, and this. But it's like, oh, I've heard this comment enough. I've seen this person put in the effort to put in feedback, and some people might agree with them. So what do I look at here? Maybe I can talk with the person. Having that connection with the audience is something that no other sport out there, no other league, outside of esports has. No one has that live chat where they can go back and be like, I wonder what the audience thought about me today. It's so valuable having this, and a big thank you to everyone who puts in the effort, whether it is positive or negative, looking towards that constructive criticism or that build up of what we do well so we can continue doing it well and get even better. Like Mike here, I value that. I think a lot of talent and casters around the world should look at valuing that as well. It's up to everyone's opinion, but at the end of the day, this makes us better at our craft. And being better at the craft is I think so important for the audience. There's almost nothing more important than that. The show comes first. And if we can improve ourselves for the show, for broadcast, and, internally, I want to be better, because being better for me makes me feel more successful, makes me feel more achieved. And if the audience is having a good time, then I'm going to have a much better time as well if they're enjoying our casting, or, I'm actioning feedback that improves the quality of both my casting and the show in total. So it's important to pull this out. This is something that needs to be said, because Twitch, Reddit, YouTube, the views on this by, other members of the audience is not ideal in my light. It's such a great resource and something that hopefully gets used in the future. So need to be brought out. Tell me what you think in the comments. I'm going to be throwing this on YouTube only because, it's something that's a little bit shorter form content, not worth a stream. I'm going to be recovering and getting better. And if you have any of that feedback yourself to throw down below, whether it's on Twitter where I post this for better marketing, or if it's down in the comments, I would appreciate that. We'll take everything on board. We'll look through as I always do, because getting that from you guys cannot be more important. So thanks again. It is bye for now, but not forever, and I'll see you on the next LPL broadcast. Bye-bye.